History is rarely changed by the loudest voice in the room. The most profound shifts in civilization almost always begin in silence. Years before the first speech, the first battle, or the first empire falls. By the time the world wakes up to a revolution, the invisible forces shaping it have already been aligning for decades. Most people live their entire lives reacting to events. They chase opportunities, panic over failures, defend themselves against criticism, and celebrate successes, as if these things appeared out of thin air. But reality does not operate randomly. Every visible outcome is the final expression of an invisible design that was quietly constructed long before. Power has a geometry, not the geometry of equations and angles you learned in school, but the deeper geometry of relationships, perception, timing, attention, and systems. Those who master this hidden architecture rarely look powerful on the surface. They don't dominate conversations. They don't rush to prove their worth. Instead, they position themselves so skillfully that the world's own momentum begins working in their favor. True influence is not about pushing harder or shouting louder. It is about understanding the shape of reality so deeply that the smallest, most precise movement creates the greatest possible result. This is the silent geometry of power. One, see the structure, not the surface. Most people mistake frantic movement for real progress. When a problem appears, they attack the most obvious symptom. When an opportunity knocks, they chase the shiny surface reward. Their attention stays trapped on the visible layer, where everything feels urgent but almost nothing of lasting value is actually built. The true architect of power trains themselves to look deeper. They understand that every visible event is the product of an invisible structure. Consider a tree. The branches and leaves catch your eye, but the tree's long-term health and growth are decided underground by its root system. Strong roots support tall trunks and abundant fruit. Weak or rotten roots will eventually topple even the mightiest-looking tree. No matter how impressive it appears today, history obeys the same invisible law. Machiavelli didn't just study kings and battles, he studied the underlying conditions that made kingdoms stable or fragile. He realized power is never sustained by charisma, ceremonies, or propaganda alone. It survives only when the hidden structures, alliances, economics, culture, incentives support it. Modern psychology confirms this truth. Our brains are wired for immediate threats and rewards, the surfaces, which helped our ancestors survive in the wild. But deeper strategic thinking begins the moment you train yourself to ask better questions. What invisible patterns and incentives created this outcome? What structures are quietly reinforcing or undermining this situation? Where is the real leverage hiding? This single shift in perspective transforms how you approach relationships, business negotiations, conflicts, career decisions, and even your personal habits. Power begins the instant you stop chasing waves on the surface and start understanding the ocean currents beneath them. Start a daily structure audit. Every evening, pick one event from your day, a meeting, argument, success, or setback, and ask, what hidden factors made this possible? Over weeks, you'll begin seeing patterns others miss entirely. 2. The power of empty space. Most people equate power with constant activity, speaking more, planning more, reacting faster, filling every second with noise. But the greatest decisions and clearest insights are almost always born in stillness. In Japanese aesthetics, there is the concept of ma, the meaningful emptiness between things. A pause in music gives the notes their emotional weight. Negative space in a painting or building creates balance and elegance. Silence in conversation often reveals more truth than a flood of words. Power follows the same principle. When your mind is cluttered with fear, the need for validation, social media noise, and endless distractions, your perception of reality becomes badly distorted. You stop seeing what actually exists and begin seeing only projections of your own anxiety or ego. This is why the wisest leaders in history protected their inner space fiercely. Marcus Aurelius, commanding one of the largest empires in history, wrote daily reminders to himself in his meditations. Not for public glory, but to keep his own mind clear amid chaos. He understood that a ruler who loses mental clarity loses everything. A clear mind doesn't magically predict the future. It simply notices what everyone else is too busy or too emotional to see. Practice deliberate emptiness. Schedule 20-30 minutes of silence every day with no input, no phone, no podcast, no music. Use it for reflection or simply observing your thoughts. Over time, this mental may becomes your greatest competitive advantage. You'll spot opportunities, risks, and manipulations months before others. Sometimes the most powerful move is not doing something new. It is deliberately creating enough inner silence to realize which current actions are completely unnecessary. 3 small moves, great consequences. The world does not reward raw effort, it rewards leverage. A heavy door doesn't open because you throw your entire body against it. It opens when you apply force at the precise hinge point. Archimedes captured this truth 2,000 years ago. Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world. Human systems, businesses, relationships, organizations, even personal psychology work exactly the same way. Companies rarely collapse from one bad quarter. Marriages rarely end because of a single fight. Nations rarely transform because of one speech. Instead, small misalignments or smart adjustments accumulate until the entire structure reaches a tipping point. The strategist doesn't ask, how can I work harder? They ask, what is the smallest change that makes everything else easier or unnecessary? Improving your sleep and morning routine can transform your entire year's productivity. One honest conversation at the right moment can save or elevate a relationship. Changing a single hiring criterion or incentive structure can reshape an entire company's culture. Use the leverage question daily in this situation. What is one small move that creates disproportionate results? Train this muscle, and you'll move from exhaustion to elegance in your efforts. Power is rarely about doing more. It is about discovering where less becomes profoundly enough. Time is the hidden dimension of power. Most people measure life in days and weeks. The master of power measures in years and decades. A bamboo plant can stay hidden underground for years, building an invisible root system before suddenly shooting up several meters in weeks. The explosive growth looks like overnight success to outsiders, but it was made inevitable by patient preparation. Real success follows this exact pattern. Society celebrates the visible breakthrough while ignoring the years of quiet, disciplined work that made it unavoidable. Queen Elizabeth I of England was a master of this dimension. She repeatedly delayed decisions that her advisors and enemies demanded immediately. Her patience frustrated everyone, but those delays allowed hidden information to surface and natural alliances to form. Her restraint turned potential disasters into historic victories. The impatient mind confuses busyness with progress. The patient mind understands that timing multiplies intelligence. Build long-term positioning habits. Invest consistently in skills that compound over 5-10 years. Nurture relationships without expecting immediate returns. Make decisions today that your future self will thank you for in a decade. Waiting is not weakness. It is strategic positioning for the moment. When one well-timed action changes everything, when the geometry becomes visible, there comes a point in every serious student of power when an unexpected truth reveals itself. Reality was never truly chaotic. It only appeared chaotic because you were looking at disconnected events instead of the deeper patterns connecting them. Once you learn to see systems instead of isolated symptoms, relationships instead of mere objects, timing instead of urgency, clarity quietly replaces struggle. You stop forcing outcomes that were never ready. You stop resisting changes that were always inevitable, and almost without noticing, your decisions begin to carry far more weight while demanding far less effort. This is the final paradox. The most powerful people are rarely those who appear to control everything through force. They are the ones who understand the hidden geometry of reality so deeply that they no longer need to fight against it. When you finally learn to see and align with the invisible architecture beneath the surface of life, the world doesn't necessarily become easier. It becomes understandable. And in that understanding lies a rare, quiet, unshakable form of power.